Hey guys, I don't think I'm ready for this, but here we go. Have you ever wondered what it's going to be like when it's time to let your kids go? Like when they fly the nest? Maybe you're actually in the thick of that right now and you have older kids, but maybe you're like me and your kids are younger, but at some point they're going through the teenage years and then they are inevitably going to leave. I know probably there's a big part of us that's like, oh, I can't wait for that time. I'll get my life back and my body back and, my sanity. But when we think about it, we don't have very long with our kids where they're under the same roof and they're so deeply connected with us. Like this is stuff that when our kids are older, beyond, let's say in the 20s and beyond, we're actually possibly going to have to work harder to get that physical connection with them because they're going to move out. And so there's a big part of me that's like, I want to make the most and the best of these years that I have with my kids now. So anyway, today we're talking about how do we as parents step back while still staying connected. And actually what came up hugely for me in this podcast episode was that this stuff we're talking about relates to every single age. Even if you have toddlers, there are moments where, yes, we're caring for them almost like 24/7, but we need to be able to let them go in some situations for them to make their own choices, maybe make bad choices, suffer the consequences, make mistakes, and then be upset. Like there's always this element of raising our kids in order to let them go. Anyway, I won't go on about it because I want to tell you about who the guest is. This is Amy Sargent. She's a certified social and emotional intelligence coach. She's actually the executive director of the Institute for Social and Emotional Intelligence, which is where I got trained all those years ago. And so I love her. I follow her stuff everywhere, especially on LinkedIn. That's where she's really present and active. And she has over 15 years in this space. She brings really incredible insights, obviously, into emotional intelligence, but how that can really transform our relationships with our kids as they become adults. Her kids are older now, they're grown. So she was the perfect person to kind of talk about this topic with. We talked about how to shift from being kind of the fixer or the problem solver to more of like a supportive coach, letting go so that they can thrive while still keeping that strong bond with us. Amy was so amazing, guys. She shared her own journey of emotional intelligence, using that to better communicate with her kids and to hold space for their feelings, and also still holding them accountable with their behavior. And I'm actually going to let you know one of the golden nuggets now. This was a game changer. It's not our emotions that cause us stress. It's actually how we choose to respond. That was massive. So if you're ready to learn how to embrace this next phase of parenting, or maybe look forward to it with empathy and trust and a little less control, then this episode is going to be really good for you. So as you may know, I'm Stephanie Pinto, the host of the podcast. I love all things emotional intelligence like Amy does. I'm a certified coach. I'm an international speaker and a best-selling author. And just before we begin, I want to acknowledge the Darug Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work, and record this podcast. I pay my respects to all First Nations people, their elders and ancestors, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, Stephanie. So glad to be here.
That's so good. I'm really excited to have you on. You're my person that when I think of emotional intelligence, I think of you because I got trained, obviously, in the Institute of Social and Emotional Intelligence, which is that is like your space, that is your jam. And I see you as kind of the guru in this space for me. And I think, what would Amy do or what would Amy say?
That's making me laugh, but thank you. I so value the work you're doing. You're bringing emotional intelligence into kids' lives. That's kind of my dream. Is I work with adults, and most of us as adults are like, oh, why didn't we know this when we were younger? So really value the work you're doing. You're actually getting this information into the hands of those who are younger. What a great way to start out life, having some emotional intelligence to work with.
Yeah, that's so true. I do hear a lot when I work with people and they hear about this stuff, and I'm sure I've said it, why didn't we get taught this as kids, or why didn't we learn it at school even? So yeah, I would love to see, a generation or so of really, people who really value emotional intelligence and infuse it in their life. And then I just think, I wonder what today's leaders and change makers and business owners, I wonder what that would all look like.
Yeah, it's a dream of mine. And I think we are going to see that. I mean, I love how much social emotional intelligence learning is being adopted by school systems. More and more people are understanding what it is and its value. So I think we will be seeing that, give it 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to see that next generation of adults who actually have learned emotional intelligence from a young age.
That would be amazing. Okay, so tell people a little bit about you and your kind of journey into emotional intelligence and what you do for those who haven't, come across your work yet.
Yeah, sure. I'm the executive director at the Institute for Social and Emotional Intelligence, and that's where I facilitate our courses. We run workshops and do a little bit of coaching on the side as well. And I kind of stumbled upon the Institute. I think it's about 10, 11 years now ago. I was working in education and doing some work in ministry in inner city churches, and met the founder of the company, Dr. Laura Belston, and just hit it off fabulously with her. And she told me a little bit about what she was looking for some help to do, some marketing and things like that. So I came on board, and year by year, piece by piece, I took on more at the Institute. The others that were there kind of came and went, and ended up leading all of the courses as well as doing all of our assessments. So it's been a journey. And when I first came upon the Institute, I literally had to look up, like, what is emotional intelligence? I'd never heard that phrase. Like most people, when you first tell them about it, they look at you kind of deer in the headlights, like, well, what are you talking about? Usually someone makes a snide joke when I mention this is what I do. They're like, oh, I'm sure that's something I need more of. So I had that same, like, tell me more. But as I learned about what it is, I realized it's what a lot of us have been learning our entire lives, of just how to be a better human being, and let that show up in a way that others can sense it and feel it. So really, the content really appealed with the lifestyle that I wanted to live in, the kind of person I wanted to be. So what a great match for me to find a company and find a body of work that so syncs up with who I want to be and who I want to be more of.
Oh, I was going to ask you what you love about emotional intelligence, but I think you just kind of answered that.
Yeah, to be able to teach something that so resonates, and you like I literally agree with every single thing that we teach, and wish I could do it better in my own life. So yeah.
Yeah. So okay, match. So aren't you a master then, because you've been doing it for so long? That's a cheeky question.
In my classes, I refuse to let anyone call me an expert in this, because honestly, emotional intelligence is a growth process. And I always tell them jokingly that if you're perfect at emotional intelligence, your heart is probably no longer beating and you're probably no longer breathing. I hope I can never say I'm perfect at it, or even a master at it. I hope I'm a continual learner. All the way until the day I die in this, because you know how it is. It's the deeper you get into something, the more you understand it and realize there's areas that you're missing on. So I really hope those areas of growth for me never go away, and my emotional intelligence can deepen year by year, day by day.
Mm-hmm. Can you share with us maybe one of your strength areas and maybe one of your growth areas? And like when we're talking about, I have talked a little bit on the podcast about the 4-quadrant model of emotional intelligence with the 26 competencies that I got trained on. Maybe do you want to run through, because I think it's fascinating. I think a lot of people don't really understand that emotional intelligence is such a wide-ranging, like there are so many skill areas that make it up. It's not just knowing your emotions. It's not just self-awareness. It's not just empathy. But then if you could share one of your strengths areas and maybe an area of growth, if you're willing.
Sure, I would be happy to. Yeah, and our definition here at the Institute of Emotional Intelligence is simply being aware of your own emotions and the emotions of others, and then managing your behavior in a way that works, that builds relationships versus tears them down. And like you just mentioned, break it into 4 quadrants. It starts with self-awareness. Am I aware of the emotions I'm feeling throughout the day, why I'm feeling them? Can I name them specifically? That self-awareness is kind of a springboard. And then it moves to self-management. Now that I'm aware of what I'm experiencing and feeling, what am I doing with that? What am I allowing and choosing to come out of my mouth? What behaviors am I saying yes to and no to? based upon those emotions that I'm experiencing. A quick example, if I'm extremely angry at someone, I've learned it's a great time to keep my mouth quiet, because if I open my mouth in those moments, things often come out that later I'm like, wow, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Or so that self-management piece is noticing, yes, I'm feeling this, and here's what I'm going to do about it in that moment. Then the third quadrant is the other awareness piece, and that's what we call social intelligence, and that's being able to tune into others. If you're in a conversation with someone, even if you're the one talking, are you able to sense what they're feeling? Are they interested? Are they bored? Are they tracking with you? Being able to pick up on their emotions. And then that last quadrant is relationship management. And it's not that other person management. If you've ever tried to make someone be like you want them to be, that doesn't always go well. But I am able to manage my role in that relationship with that person. And I always give this example. Say I was going into my manager to ask for a raise, and I walk in her office and she's crying. There's tissues all over her desk. She's upset. My social intelligence would tell me something's going on with her. I don't know exactly what, but the behavior management part there for me would be, maybe it's not the best time to demand or ask for that raise. Maybe I need to check in with her and say, hey, what's happening with you? What can I do for you? Are you okay? So using that intelligence of picking up on what they're experiencing, and then managing, again, not her, but my choices and behaviors in that moment.
Wow, that's so powerful. Yeah.
My strength, and I've learned a bit about this. I have parents who are extremely optimistic, and one of the 26 competencies of emotional intelligence is realistic optimism. And I've learned that a lot of optimism is impacted by our genetic makeup. Like if you had a family and environment that was positive, it's a little bit easier as an adult to stay in that positive place. Optimism is something that I've worked hard at, and I have the tools in my pocket now that when I'm feeling frustrated or discouraged, I know what I need to do to bring about some positive emotions. So I'd say my strength lies in that realistic optimism place, closely connected with resilience. I've gone through some tough times, as we all have, and not that I manage it perfectly. It's not like I'm all happy through these tough times, but I have tools now to keep hope, to hang on to, even if I don't have a solution figured out, I know that I'll figure it out at some point. So that's something I've worked on. It's something that comes a little bit natural, and that combination always adds up to one of my strengths.
Wow.
Areas of growth, I've got a few of them, and I'll just be honest. One of them that I struggle with teamwork and collaboration. And a lot of people are always like, wait, what? You're leading these teams and you lead coaches. And yes, I have to work hard to be a good team player. But if I just went with my natural, I'd be off doing my own thing, doing my work just how I want it all perfectly and wonderful. But I would totally miss out on the collaboration piece that comes from working with others. So I'm aware of it. Every time I take an assessment, that one usually comes up as a lower score. But the scores are creeping upward because I am doing the work to build that skill set. So there's hope. There's hope even for those of us who struggle.
I love that. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing with us.
Well, sure.
I think we all have those growth areas. And I know I have blind spots too. And I know that's a piece of it. And thank goodness I have people like my husband to point them out lovingly. But it's super fascinating. And I know we wanted to talk about, how our parenting roles shift as our kids transition to adults, and obviously infusing emotional intelligence into that. So tell us a bit about your kids are now grown. Have they left home? Are they still home with you?
They have flown the nest. I always tell people that they're adulting well, for as well as one can adult. So I have 3 kids, ages 30, 27, and 25, boy, girl. And when I came upon emotional intelligence, they were in their late teen years. So I didn't have the opportunity, as you have, and those that you work with, to instill emotional intelligence into them as an early age. But as soon as I started learning about it, boy, did I get busy trying to have conversations with them about understanding emotions. Something we started doing when they were still at home, which I found was quite effective. And it was just like, I learned this, I'm going to try it. Is just owning what we're feeling. I grew up in an environment where certain emotions were not acceptable, or taught, like a lot of people in my generation, taught to hide emotions or mask them, or, wipe that look off your face, or I'll give you something to cry about kind of mentality. So with my own kids, really try to adjust that and give them space to feel what they're feeling, at the same time holding them responsible for their behaviors. And for teenagers, late teenagers, it was perfect timing in so many ways, because boy, were they experiencing some big emotions during those days of the upheavals of middle school and high school. But at the same time, teaching them that, no matter what you're feeling, you're so responsible for what you say and what you do. And for me, I was learning it as they were learning it. And something we started allowing ourselves to do is, sometimes I get home from work, they get home from school, and we could just call it like, hey, I am feeling cranky right now. And to give that person space to be cranky, because we've learned that it's perfectly okay. All of the emotions that we experience are perfectly okay. It's not the emotions that get us into trouble. It's the choices that we make around behaviors. So allowing that space to come home and say, I'm not doing well. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I'm hungry, whatever. I need to go in my room. I need space. And learning that that's okay to give each other that space. This was huge for us. And we kind of did it silly at first, like, I'm cranky, I'm going to my room. But it really became a practice that worked for all of us, allowing us to be okay with those emotions that we don't especially enjoy experiencing. And I'm really trying to get away from labeling emotions as good or bad. They're emotions. But there definitely are emotions that are unpleasant to experience, that are uncomfortable, that we don't like. And that practice of allowing ourselves that space gave us that opportunity to learn to be okay with all of the emotions. And having teenagers really did get to experience quite a plethora of emotions those days. So. So that was like all the instruction that my kids really got on emotional intelligence learning. Of course, I made them take our assessment and we talked through the results, et cetera. But so it came to them a little bit late into their teenage years, but I think it was enough to start to carry over to their adult lives.
Wow, that's really powerful to say, because I'm sure there are parents listening who think, oh my goodness, but my kids are 12 or 14 or older. We have a spread. My kids are 7 and 10. So I'm in that in the middle, those middle years. But I love that you said, I actually sneakily was typing this because it was so good. You said, it's not emotions that get us into trouble. It's the choices we make around behavior. That's mind blowing.
That's a new learning for me as well. I mean, emotions have gotten a bad rap for so many years. And again, my generation literally was taught, don't bring your emotions to work with you, don't. And there were so many boundaries and restrictions on which emotions were acceptable. And the understanding that all emotions are acceptable, because all they're doing is trying to say, hey, something's going on in there. Listen to this, something's happening. But as we experiencing those emotions, that's not an excuse for poor behavior. That's not an excuse to be abusive to someone or say hurtful things to them or make choices that are hurtful to me. We still are responsible to make good choices as we experience those emotions. Does that make sense and resonate?
Absolutely. Yes, 1000%. Okay, so we've talked a bit about using emotional intelligence to build relationships with our kids, because you spoke about owning what we are feeling, just calling that out and giving our kids space to feel what they're feeling, right? Without kind of, demonizing it or pathologizing it or taking it personally. Did you find that you were maybe taking things less personally as a parent? Sometimes I know we do that when you started to learn this stuff.
Of course. I mean, and we all do that. And, of course, we do that into adult relationships as well. But yes, when we learn to own our own emotions, and then when you hear someone beside you saying, I'm feeling this, you realize it's what they're feeling. Yes, maybe it's a result of me as a parent saying, no, you can't go to that party. Maybe it's a result of the choice that I made, but it's still their emotions. And that, I think for parents, we take so much pressure on ourselves to fix everything, solve everything, be everything for our kids. And for me, it's actually a relief to realize I'm not responsible for their emotions. and as if I could try to control them anyway. It has never worked. So for me, I found that a great relief and actually gave me space to be a better parent, allowing them to experience their own emotions. And I didn't have to take blame for them. I didn't have to try to fix them. I didn't have to try to change them. I could truly let them have that emotion.
I'm feeling like this speaks a lot to like a romantic relationship, like two partners, or, me and my husband. Can you speak to whether these, letting that other person have their own emotions, not taking it personally, is that kind of universal, would you say, amongst those kind of different relationships?
Yeah, and I would take it even beyond romantic relationships into work and colleagues and literally every human being we run into on the street. And if anyone's on social media, which I think most of us are these days, I mean, just sit back and read the comments and you'll see a huge lack of emotional intelligence, specifically social intelligence. And people are so reluctant to allow others to experience what they're experiencing if it's different from my experience. So I think relationships in general, all of us understanding these are my emotions and here's why I'm feeling them. Those are yours, and I honor you for feeling that way. I've really been trying to do work around empathy and learning to be more empathetic and to express more empathy, and learning phrasing around things like, it makes sense that you're feeling that way. Or, yeah, if I were in that situation, which I am not, but I would probably feel that same way. Just trying to validate. I think more than anything in life, what we really want deep down as humans is validation, and validations for the way we're feeling. And it's really hard to validate someone how they're feeling if I don't like it, if I don't agree with it, if I think they should be feeling some different way. But learning to validate, it makes sense that you're feeling that way. It might not be how I'm feeling. It might not be my reaction, but it makes sense that you feel that way. And it's okay that you feel that. I get it. Yes, you're feeling that, of course. Yeah. Really learning wording and verbiage around validating those emotions. It's huge.
Yeah. And I think
in all relationships.
Yes, that is very different to condoning or allowing the behavior that may go with that. So let's say if our child or teen, is really upset because they got a bad grade on a test and they're really, mad about it or feeling really disappointed, and they like come home, dump their bag and slam their door, like there's a big difference between, as what you were saying, like we can still validate that they obviously something's up. If we know what it is, then we think, oh my gosh, I would be feeling probably the same as you, but in the same hand, it's not okay that you maybe slammed the door or called me a name or something like that,
That's excellent distinction between what we're experiencing and how we're behaving. And yes, we can still set boundaries in our families and our households and in our workplaces around what behaviors are appropriate in this setting. And that's nothing to do with the emotions that someone's experiencing. Again, all emotions are valid, but not all behaviors are valid, and not all behaviors are appropriate in every situation. So. Yeah. Wow. I think that's up to us as parents to set those boundaries of, here's the acceptable behavior in our household, and explore ways with your kids how to express those in a way that doesn't hurt themselves, that doesn't hurt others, etc.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe let's finish up with, this is a big question, and it's around how we can use emotional intelligence to really start to let our kids or our older kids and teens, letting them go so they can thrive. But I think a lot of this actually is relevant for younger kids when we need to hands off a little bit and let them make their own choices, sometimes make mistakes or try things out. Even for my kids, like I said, they're 7 and 10, and I'm still feeling like I need to sometimes let go a little bit and not be so around them. So anyway, let's Talk about that.
Let's explore that. It is uncharted territory. And I tell you, as a parent of adult children now, there's not a lot of guides out there on how to be an emotionally intelligent parent of adult children. It's like there's parenting books for when they're little, and then we're kind of turned loose and figured it out from here. So I'm definitely in process of figuring that out. Some of the techniques, I think that and again, I'm just trying these out with my own adult children as things come up, but realizing that my role is now more of a supporter versus controller, manager. Again, allowing them to feel their emotions, but not fixing it. And I think it has been one of the hardest things for me as a mom to learn and adjust to is when they were younger, I could fix everything. They come home, they're sad, you wipe their tears, they need help with homework, you're a fixer. And allowing our adult children to make their own choices and make mistakes, even if you're seeing, oh, bad choice, don't allowing them to make those mistakes so they can learn, so they can develop their own emotional intelligence, which comes from doing things right and doing things maybe not the way that we would choose for them. So for me, a big learning piece in parenting adult children is letting them be them. And that means sometimes not picking up the phone as soon as I see their text. Help, Mom, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out, or I'm to take a breath as a parent and say, okay, right now they're in that amygdala overload place of help, but not stepping in and swooping in and fixing it, because how are they going to learn if I do that for them? So giving a little space between those panic texts. Often if I don't respond right away or to a late night call where they're like crying, something happened, the next morning they'll text, hey, Mom, figured it out, good to go. And it's hard as a parent because we like to be the one that can fix things, but it's unbelievable to sit back and watch your kids learn to start to make repairs and make adjustments without us telling them what to do. So that it's a learning process. And for me, it's tough because we do have life experience. We've got a leg up on them. We can see when they're making a choice that may not be one that we think would be best for them. But learning to not give that advice unless they are literally asking, can you give me some ideas? And even when they ask for advice, something I've been trying to do is saying, well, what do you think your options are? We really take on the role of a coach with our adult children. And instead of me coming in to fix it as a coach, I would say, well, let's go through your options. What options do you see here? And let them explore those options, because I really do believe as coaches that everyone has the answers within them. And as an adult, learning to let our adult children show that they have those answers is really, really difficult, because again, as parents, we're so quick to swoop in and fix things and patch them up, and help them feel better. So just learning to sit back, becoming much more of a listener than a teller with adult children, letting them work through the choices. And a lot of times I'll ask, well, of those options, which one seems like it'll work the most right now? Which one makes most sense to you? And it's unbelievable. Like they usually land on a pretty decent choice, and then they act out, then they try it. And again, my role, I think, is to be a supporter, to support the choices that they make, or at least support them as they make their choices. And no matter what happens, whether it's a great choice, whether it's a not so great choice, even if it's a bad choice, I'm still here supporting you. My love's not going anywhere. I may not support the exact thing that you chose, but I do support you. So I don't know. I'm learning this and figuring it out, and would love any insights you have. It is a brand new world of parenting. And again, not a lot of guidance out there on how to do this well.
Yeah. Wow. No, that is brilliant. I think you just gave so many insights that are honestly universal, I think, across the ages, really, even for the younger kids. I think sometimes definitely letting them experience whatever emotions that are coming up for them, but also letting them make some choices that, oh, I don't know if that's going to work well, because then they're going to learn, unless it's like a dangerous, yes, you can climb on that high wall of concrete.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think so much of that, can we be the supporter and the coach? Like I'm realizing I'm coaching my kids going, well, I wonder if you're not going to share that with him now, which I get you don't want to, it's yours. But what do you think that's going to make him want to do later when you want to share his, iPad or whatever they have, So it's kind of coaching and helping them learn and make choices and problem solve rather than saying, no, you need to share or both give it to me. No one has it. And in your room's done. Like we can't be that police officer. We can't be that, the person who makes all the rules and doesn't pass that on to our kids, because then when we're not there and they're in the classroom or the playground or out with, out at a party, they don't, they've always had someone make the choices for them. So
yeah, anyway. They haven't learned it. And truly, ultimately, as parents, what do we want? We want these children to grow up to be amazingly productive, wonderful, loving adults. And they need to be able to do that without us. And it's humbling as a parent when you go from, you're kind of their star in the little, in the little ages, and they look to you for advice. To step back from that and allow them to be the star, it can be a struggle for a lot of parents. And you hear all the negativity and frustrations over empty nesting and letting your kids go and helping them launch, but it's truly a thing, and it's a lot of it is a shift in our role of how we're connecting with them, how we're relating to them. And it's not for the faint-hearted. It's I do wish there was more instruction out there for us on how to do this well, helping them develop that growth mindset, instead of being so quick to correct on a right or wrong, allow them to make mistakes and learn from that and grow. It's definitely a learning process for me. And I hope to continue these conversations with you as we both learn how to do this well. And hopefully we can learn from others as well that are out there in these same places.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So I lied because I have one final question. This is just a short one to wrap up with. Is there a myth or a misconception around emotions or emotional intelligence, something that you can kind of bust for people, like busting a myth that you think, oh, everyone thinks this, but it's actually that? Is there something that you could share?
I think I would go back to that emotions are the bad guy concept. And so many of us have gotten in trouble for emotions. I love the work that's been done in the movie Inside Out and Inside Out 2 about helping us for the first time, I think, understanding that all emotions are acceptable. And I think that is I run across that still in people. I heard someone just yesterday saying, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't be angry still. I shouldn't still be upset. It's so ingrained in us that we shouldn't fill in the blank, and learning that, yes, I am feeling this and here's why. And it's completely acceptable that I'm feeling it. Is such a huge step in developing this emotional intelligence that we all want more of, allowing ourselves to feel all emotions and really remove those labels of good and bad. I hear it all the time, and I still use them by accident. It's hard not to label certain emotions as bad. So taking off that stigma that emotions are the bad guy and realizing it's our choices that tend to get us in trouble. And the good news about this is that we have a choice. We truly can choose the things we say and the things we do. To me, there's a lot of power in recognizing our emotions are present and they're normal and they're acceptable. And I have a choice as to what I'm going to do next.
Yeah. I think the future is emotionally intelligent. And I think we're a big piece of the puzzle that's really starting to help.
We're definitely working together to get there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate you. I appreciate your work. I just think this is, something that if we can get this into the hearts and the minds of, hopefully millions of people out there across the world, then we're doing some good. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate your time today.
Okay, that is a wrap for today's episode. I hope you got as much out of Amy's wisdom as I personally did. And I'm not going to lie, as a parent who is very present in my kids' lives, I know that letting go when the time comes is going to be really, really hard for me. But hearing Amy's insights on using emotional intelligence to keep these bonds strong, even as our kids grow, really does give me hope about how possible it is to navigate this transition kind of with some grace. If you found this conversation helpful, please subscribe, please leave a review, and share it with another parent who might be struggling with this journey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and keep nurturing those meaningful connections with your kids no matter their age. I'll see you guys next time.